Perhaps no other century in human existence experienced the terrible and remarkable contrasts of the 20th century. The century was heroic and tragic, progressive and reactionary, forward-looking and frighteningly regressive. A century of contradiction, confusion, and massive change. But the nature of human beings had not changed, and it is that basic nature, more than anything else, which is the determining catalyst of human history, certainly the history of the 20th century. Faith and Fate will focus on how all these events and occurrences impacted on one specific group of people. A people whose survival has defied the ravages and challenges not only of this century, but of the over 40 centuries that have led up to it. Faith and Fate, the story of the Jewish people in the 20th century.
Based on the book by Beryl Wine, Faith and Fate is an 11-part documentary series and interactive educational website presently being produced by the Destiny Foundation. Presented by Beryl Wine and a team of leading historians, Faith and Fate dramatically and emotionally tells the story of how the events of the century impacted on the Jewish people and the impact the Jewish people had on the century.
Jewish history has been going on for a very long time. Almost 4,000 years since Abraham, the first Jew, and over 3,300 years since we stood at Sinai and received the Ten Commandments and the Torah. Jewish history is a continuum, and it should be viewed in that context. To begin to understand any century of our history, we have to see the big picture. We have to see ourselves in an overview. Who are we? What is a Jew? What is our destiny? How and why have we survived until today?
To follow the path of the Jews in the 20th century is to watch history's giant pendulum swing back and forth. At times it's visible, at times it's not.
We are proud to be called the people of the book. We are a holy nation rooted in our past. The past is directly connected to our present, and both the past and the present, whether we understand it or not, will in one way or another impact on our future. I have always attempted to write Jewish history from a traditional Jewish viewpoint, from a viewpoint that acknowledges and recognizes the centrality of Torah and of Torah scholarship within Jewish life, to put history into that perspective. There is really no way to assess Jewish history properly without stressing the role of Torah and of belief and faith within the Jewish people. If it were not for Torah and that belief and faith, there would not be Jewish history, and there certainly would not be a Jewish people to talk about.
At the beginning of the century, exactly as the predictions of the exile in the Torah and prophets foretold, Jews were living in nearly every part of the world, and nations scattered across the earth.
From the sweeping social changes in Eastern Europe in the early 1900s, to the growth of a new Jewish world in the United States, from the demise of European Jewry and the suppression of Soviet Jewry under the Bolsheviks, to the miracle of the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 and the mass exodus of Soviet Jewry after the fall of communism, from the dark days of the destruction of Torah and the Jewish people in Europe to its remarkable resurgence and growth in Israel, America, and the rest of the world today, the 20th century has been, in the words of Charles Dickens, the best of times and the worst of times.
In Episode 1, The Dawn of the Century, 1900 to 1910, we will see the great emigration of Jews from the Russian Empire to America and the rest of the world, we will see the tensions of poverty, inequality, and the restlessness of change, the beginnings of socialism, secular and religious Zionism, the impact of Haskalah, the Enlightenment, and the desperate struggle over the retention of Jewish identity. Episode 2, The Implosion of the Old Order, 1911 to 1920. Episode 3, Distortions and Illusions, 1921 to 1930. Episode 4, Ominous Skies, 1931 to 1938. Episode 5, The Darkest Days, 1939 to 1945. A New Beginning, 1946 to 1950. Episode 6, A Changed World, 1951 to 1960. Episode 7, Reality is Challenged, 1961 to 1970. Episode 8, Uncertainty and Surprises, 1971 to 1980. Episode 9, Hopes, Dreams, and Illusions, 1981 to 1990. Episode 10, New Realities, 1991 to 2000.
I hope that when the audience sees Faith and Fate, they will obtain a sense of pride, of self-worth, of wonder, of vision, of destiny, of the realization that we, the Jewish people, are going somewhere, and also of the realization that each and every one of us can and must contribute to this journey, to this vision, and that Faith and Fate will therefore be a source of inspiration and not merely a source of knowledge and facts.
Faith and Fate, the story of the Jewish people in the 20th century. A Barrel Wine Destiny series, now in production.